Another Yardbird gone. Chris Dreja today on another vinyl show. Ike Frazier Industries presents another vinyl show with Ike Frazier. Hey everybody, it's your old pal Ike Frazier with a little bit of sad news today. Unfortunately, Jim McCarthy, the original drummer of the Yardbirds, announced that Chris Dreja, the original rhythm guitarist, has passed away. And this is their first album, For Your Love in America, and that contains songs by Clapton and Jeff Beck. It's kind of a loose start to the Yardbirds, but it's a pretty good record. For Your Love, I'm Not Talking, I Ain't Got You, Got to Hurry, I Ain't Done Wrong, I Wish You Would, Certain Girl. Those are all great tracks from that album. Now in America, those came out on Columbia, but in Canada, they came out on Capitol. Now this is a reissue of the very last Yardbirds record, Little Games, and Hoopa Doopa. Look at that right there. That is some beautiful colored vinyl right there. Splattered. Fantastic. That one right there. Now, if you don't have a Yardbirds record, there's a lot of greatest hits you can get out there. But this one right here, featuring classic performances by Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and Jimmy Page. This is a great album. It's a gatefold cover. Maybe I'll get it out for you. It's a gatefold cover. It has the Yardbirds depicted as giant birds over the city. And it's a double record set from your friends at Epic. It's got a lot of liner notes in there. It's a pretty good record. You can get this record for less than $40. It's a really great one. Now, of course, all the famous Yardbirds. Clapton went on to start Cream, Jeff Beck, the Jeff Beck Group, Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, Armageddon, Keith Relf's band after the Yardbirds, one of his many bands after the Yardbirds. But Dreja is an important guy. His rhythm guitar is key to the rave up, which was the signature sound of the Yardbirds. And from the Yardbirds comes psychedelia, Eastern sounds, so many things. They are probably the first psychedelic rock and roll band. And we had to make this video quick today because it's such sad news. We really are sad to hear about Chris Dreja's passing, but the Yardbirds will live on forever and he will live with them. His music will continue forever. God bless Chris Dreja. We dedicate this video to him. I hope you enjoyed the video tribute coming up next. And we'll see you soon. It's your friend Ike Frazier, and the next video is going to be a happier situation, I promise you. We'll see you next time, my friends. November 11th, 1945, a new baby was brought in the world by Polish expatriates who fought in the Air Force against the Russians. And that was a young Chris Dreja. And he had a deep, fervent love of music, which led him to Top Topham, who was a young guitar player at the time. And they jammed around and created an amateur band, the Metropolitan Blues Quartet. Well, in less than a year, they got a vocalist in Keith Relf. And Keith Relf stayed, and he knew somebody who was a drummer, and that drummer was Jim McCarthy. So Jim McCarthy became the fourth member of the quartet, but still no bass player. Enter Paul Samwell Smith. Now they're a five-piece. They need a new name, the Yardbirds. And this would become Yardbirds Mach 1. Now, Top Topham, he was only 15, so he quit when they went professional, and a local band, the Roosters, had a pretty good guitar player, and his name was Eric Clapton. And so the Yardbirds asked Eric Clapton if he wanted to join, and he said yes. Look at him smiling over there. Clapton rarely smiles back then. So Dreja and Clapton perfect something called the Rave Up at their live shows, and their first album was a live album released December 4th, 1964, 5 live Yardbirds, and this would create Yardbirds Mach 2. Now, Clapton, he gets upset over For Your Love, and he decides that he's going to quit. And while he's quitting, the album For Your Love comes out, and it has songs with Clapton and Jeff Beck, which makes Yardbirds Mach 3. And here's the Canadian copy that mixes the For Your Love album with some singles, Heart Full of Soul. Now, Paul Samuel Smith, he wants to become the producer of the Yardbirds, so he quits being a touring member. And Jeff Beck and Paul Samuel Smith handle the bass on the next batch of recordings till they find a bass player. And that would be a young Jimmy Page. And so Jimmy Page, we don't know if he played on this album or not, but he might have. The Over, Under, Sideways, Down single went to number 13 in the US, number 10 in the UK. Roger the Engineer came out July 15th, 1966, and all its cover notes and liner notes were by Chris Dreja. Now, the Over, Under, Sideways, Down album came out in the United States, and that was a great success, but then it's Yardbirds Mach 4. And so Page is on the bass, but he doesn't want to stay on the bass. He switches to guitar, and here's a very rare happening 10 years time ago, signed by the entire band, and that right now they're asking $10,000 for that. Very rare to get every member of the lineup signed from that period. Now they start in a film Blow Up because The Who were unavailable to appear in it. So here we see Jimmy Page on the bass, and they're playing Train Kept Rolling. There's Keith Relf right there singing. We see Beck on the far end having a little trouble with his guitar there, and we have a man helping him out. Now, the whole film Blow Up was about photography, and the Yardbirds only have a small scene in the movie that we see here, but Jeff Beck does a Pete Townsend, and he destroys his guitar for the crowd, and everybody is excited about that action-packed. Now, Jimmy Page, he doesn't know what's going to happen at this point because he wants to be the lead guitar player in the band, but Jeff Beck is the lead guitar player. But Jeff Beck is starting to get fed up with all the touring and all the problems that come with it, and he claims that he had got an infection of some sort and he was tired. And so in November 1966, Jeff Beck quits the Yardbirds. And so while they're in this period of turmoil, in March of 67, they released their greatest hits in the U.S. In Canada, the greatest hits comes out in October 67, and now we're down to Mach 5 of the Yardbirds, four-piece band. Mickey Most is brought in to try to make some success for them because they need some hit singles. They haven't had any in a while. And so he produces the first batch with Little Games. And Little Games is a really great song, but it did not do very well in the pop charts, but became the title track of the album, Little Games, that would be released in July of 67. Now, Mickey Most, he said, we gotta have a hit single. So Harry Nilsson had written a song, 10 Little Indians, and he had the Yardbirds record that. And it's a powerful recording, released October 9th, 1967, but it went nowhere. Their last single, released April 1st, 1968, Good Night, Josephine, a song about a prostitute clothes grabber. I'm not really sure what it's about. The B-side, though, Think About It, is a Jimmy Page hard rock song. Now, July 7th, 1968, that will go down in history because the Yardbirds played their very last gig, and they played that at the College of Technology. And so Page was done with the Yardbirds, and he had plans for a new band, and so he asked Chris Dreja, well, what about you? Would you like to play bass in the new band? And Dreja thought about it, and he's like, no, I don't really think I want to keep doing what we've been doing. I've always kind of had an interest in photography. So he turns down Jimmy Page as the bass player for Led Zeppelin and becomes a full-time photographer. And one of the first batches of photographs he takes is of the young Led Zeppelin. And this is the back cover of Led Zeppelin 1. He took that picture. 1970, the 2 LP set Yardbirds comes out and sparks some more interest in the Yardbirds. But then 71, Live Yardbirds comes out, and Jimmy Page sues Epic Records, and that record is withdrawn. Now, Led Zeppelin played Madison Square Garden in 1972. and they were very excited about this big show, and so they called their old buddy Chris Dreja up, and he takes a couple of promotional photos after the show at the Madison Square Garden. We see these two very famous pictures of Led Zeppelin that he took. Now we fast forward to 1983, in fact, June 23rd, and there's the 25th anniversary celebration at the Marquee. And Chris, Jim, and Paul play for the first time together since 1966. And they decide to start a band called Box of Frogs, which Jeff Beck guest stars on 4 of the tracks. Box of Frogs is not a great success. They decide not to tour it. Jeff Beck doesn't want to be involved, and that's basically the end for one more record. But the Yardbirds were inducted in 1992 into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Chris Dreja is right there with Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and Jimmy Page. He is one of those people. Here we see everybody jamming at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But God bless Chris Dreja. We think he's a fantastic fella. This is the last Yardbirds record, and that came out in 2003. Now, the live album from 68, Live Yardbirds, Jimmy Page took those tapes and he revamped them and removed the crowd noise, and in November 2017 released it as Yardbirds 68. And here's the RSD B-sides that was recently released on colored vinyl. But Chris Dreja, God bless him, the inventor of the rave up. And we dedicate this episode to him. And we thank everybody for watching. And we'll see you next time. I hope you have a great night.